In sharing my life story, I hope to encourage you. I know the trials that you've gone through and are facing are especially difficult. You can overcome them. I'm living proof, and so is my family. Revelation 12:10 declares, "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death." This experience can be ours if we choose to follow and allow Jesus Christ to bring us from broken to breakthrough. Both of my parents were raised in homes where the love that they both so desperately needed, especially from their fathers, it wasn't conveyed or expressed in healthy or tangible ways, which led to struggles early on in their lives.
I had a pretty good relationship with my mother. My father was a very quiet man. He didn't express his love. He didn't...
It's okay. Sorry. So he didn't express his love?
He didn't. When my sister was young, they were young.
Okay.
When my mother had me, she was 38. And
wow,
so they were older.
I didn't think Grandma was that old. Okay.
Yeah, so they were older, and they had their careers and businesses, and didn't have as much time for me like they did my sister.
Okay.
So I grew up basically in a house in my younger years and into my teenage years, totally alone, with just mom and dad. The aloneness was just unbearable. It was just unbearable. And all I wanted to do was have a conversation with my father, and he was short and cut it dry. I so dearly wanted to know that I was loved.
Okay.
I never heard my father say, "I love you." And I went ahead and, started running with the wrong groups. And one of the boys in the neighborhood first started me with cigarettes, and I liked the feeling of the high, the rush I got from the cigarettes.
And this was 12 or 13?
About 12, 12 years old. And then he turned me on to some beer, and I liked that even more. I thought that was pretty cool. With all the parties that Nana and Papa, my mom and dad had, I offered to clean up. You just go to bed, don't worry about it, and I'll be glad to clean up.
Interesting.
Yeah. And by
because
God,
you were putting everything down the drain.
Oh, yes, my drain.
Your drain.
My physical drain, yes, absolutely.
In your junior year of high school, you're now full on in your addiction. What does that mean?
I'm a daily drinker.
And the pills started at what point? What age?
Well, right around 16, 17, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. And within a very short time, your mother became pregnant.
My mom and my sister took me to the doctor.
Okay.
And we had to do a pregnancy test. And then we went to lunch and went shopping and then had to come back for the results. And my mother lost it.
Your mom lost it.
Yeah. She got very angry and yelling and screaming and...
You're in the doctor's office?
In the waiting room.
In the waiting room, okay. And what happened after that?
We drove home. We were in Stockton, and we drove home to Manteca. And I had to call David, your dad, and tell him. And then him and his parents came over, and we went through the whole, what are we going to do now thing.
Yeah.
And then a week later, we got married. And I finished high school.
A week later?
A week later.
I wanted to be the man on the white stallion.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to have a relationship, be a husband. I think it was an awful big ego kind of thing going on with me. Look at me now. I'm a husband.
Okay.
Soon to be a father. I wanted to be noticed. I really wanted to be noticed more than anything else. One of the prettiest girls in school. One of the smartest. I was just infatuated at that time. with everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I thought life was really going to be good.
When we're young, we usually live largely in the moment, not taking into consideration how dramatically our choices today can impact our future. At 16 and 18, my parents were the same. They dove into the deep end of life by their choice to get intimately involved with each other. The problem was, since they were so young, they didn't even know themselves yet, and most definitely didn't know each other. My mother didn't even know that my father had already developed a serious drug and alcohol problem. So making huge decisions that can impact the rest of your life while so young is not wise. What was it, do you think, that led to making that decision so early to get intimately involved as a young lady?
He was very persuasive.
Okay.
He was very domineering of my time and who I could see and what I could do. I see that now. I didn't see that then.
Sure.
And so as young as I was, listening to what this 19-year-old had to say, I thought he knew it all.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so, you know, you can be talked into a lot of things when you're so young, which I see now.
Right.
And I would not wish that upon anybody.
I was just a full-blown drunk. I really was. It got to the point where every day it was just getting worse and worse and worse. You know, I mean, I'm not talking big steps, but little steps, just little steps. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm just completely out of it, you know. And the only thing that mattered was David. And only David mattered his whole life. I was making things unbearable. I was never a father. I was never a father. There's a long time I thought I was, you know, but I really wasn't.
My brothers, Aaron and Brandon, over the next few years were born. So in a 6-year period, 6.5-year period, they had 3 boys now. My mother was a whopping 22 years old with 3 boys, with the husband not bringing home the money that needs to be brought home, not supporting the family. And she finally, after a drunken fit where my dad was driving home from a party with all of us in the car, and he was drunk driving us home, swerving all over the place, and she's begging him, please pull over the car, and he won't pull over. They get home, she says, let's go, I'm taking the boys to my sister's. Wait a minute, it's late, you need to be putting them in bed. No, I'm leaving. What do you mean? It's late, where would you go? I'm leaving you, I'm divorcing you. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, finally. And so she divorced him.
Now I'm swacked out of my head.
Yeah.
Yep, with 4 people that I'm supposed to be totally in love with.
Right.
And care for.
Right.
You know, and I said, you know, I'm going to put her to bed. And she says, no, you don't understand. I'm leaving you. I'm getting a divorce. And that's one thing I'll never forget. Never. For 2 reasons. 1, it shocked the heck out of me. And 2, it was the best thing that could have happened for you guys.
Agreed.
You know. But it took me a couple days later to really come to that conclusion as far as the children. I was ashamed. And so I did the best thing that I knew what to do, and that was just get messed up, not to think about it as much as I possibly could. It had me. It
didn't drive you to change.
No.
I just needed to not think this. I don't want to feel this. You just were self-medicating.
Absolutely.
I remember you guys explaining that Mommy and Daddy weren't going to live together anymore. And I didn't understand. The next memory I have is I remember being in the foyer of Sissy's house, and you were leaving, and I had you by your ankles, and you had to peel me from your ankles, and you literally walked out of my life. Unfortunately, the earliest memory I have with my father was when he was walking out of my life. Divorce is extraordinarily traumatic for the whole family, especially the children. it disrupts and unsettles everything. Not that things were stable in our lives before. By the time I was 7 years old, we had moved from place to place 13 times. But now Dad was gone and the family was broken. The divorce was the first real devastating experience for my brother Aaron and myself. Brandon was just an infant, but from my mother's perspective, it was relief. It was the right step. Indeed, it was. When a spouse refuses to change and the children or the spouse is in danger, then it is time to get out. The most important thing is to protect the children. My dad would be in and out of our lives as he dove deeper and deeper into his addiction. He'd promised to pick us up to take us to our grandparents where he had supervised visitations, and we'd be ready, packed, sitting on the porch, and he wouldn't show again. And this only deepened the sense of loss. My mother, thankfully, was always careful to guard our hearts, just telling us she didn't know why he didn't show up. She didn't justify or excuse his behaviors, nor did she call him names or talk bad about him. And this is very important in a divorce. Parents must guard their children's heart regarding the other parent. I'm thankful that we boys didn't have to bear the burden of her anger and her hurt towards him. The loss of him and the pain and confusion of our lives changing was enough for our little hearts. And we children should never be emotionally overwhelmed by our parents' adult problems and possible venom toward each other. Parents need to keep their negative feelings personal, and they need to keep them away from their children as much as possible to make this new heartbreaking reality and transition as easy as possible. So Dad's gone. Mom's trying to put our life back together. She had to put us in daycare while she worked to provide for us. And what she didn't know was that the babysitter's oldest son was molesting me and several other little boys each day when it was nap time. I remember being so scared. I didn't tell anyone. And this was the first real big secret that I remember keeping. I knew what was going on was wrong, but I didn't even tell my mother until I was an adult. I wish I would have told her or told somebody. Then those terrible things wouldn't have to kept on happening day in and day out. I live with the thought now as an adult that he might have continued to molest children for years. And if I just told my mom or somebody else, I know they would have done something and that perpetrator could have been stopped. Parents, educate and inform your children because this hidden epidemic of abuse, it crosses all social, economic, religious, and ethnic boundaries. It is an equal opportunity destroyer of children. I need to talk to my younger brothers and sisters for just a moment, just in case no one has ever told you about these things. It is never okay for anyone to touch you or have you touch them in their private parts. If somebody does, then it is the right thing to tell somebody that you trust right away. Don't keep it inside because it just starts to hurt your heart and you'll stop trusting people. Tell your parents if you can. Tell a teacher, the pastor, or tell somebody that you know who will help you and protect you. Unfortunately, sometimes these terrible things will happen with somebody that you already know. Now, you won't get in trouble though if you tell somebody, and it is not your fault. And it's not some special little secret thing that only you and that person can know about. No, never. God loves you and He wants to help you, but you need to ask for help so He can help you. In fact, if someone does do something to you, then no matter where it happens and who it's with, I want you to yell and scream and run for help, run to safety. Tell somebody right away what happened. And if the person that you tell doesn't believe you, then go tell somebody else that you trust. If you're an adult and you were traumatized, molested, or abused in your childhood, talk to somebody. It's really the key. Don't hold it in. Whether you realize it or not, it may be impacting your life right now. Reach out. It's time to start the healing process, and there are resources to help you. Parents, it is time to warn and educate our children about these terrible things. Don't be afraid that you'll taint their innocence. No, it's better to teach them now rather than for them to be in a position where their innocence might be stolen. We want our children to be equipped just in case they're ever found in a compromising situation like this. If a child ever comes to you and shares something terrible like this, be very careful. Help them to know that they are safe and that you love them and that you believe them. Because it took tremendous courage for them to come to you. They need to know that you're going to help them. Don't freak out. Quietly, perhaps, call the authorities and look into the matter with professionals, no matter who the accused may be, because far too often the matter is sometimes swept under the carpet because people don't want to embarrass the family or the church or an institution. No, a possible crime was committed, and the perpetrator must be held accountable because we don't want it to happen again. Trust me, I know I was never told about these things as a child. I kept my secrets inside for a lot of years. And I know it's uncomfortable to talk about these things, but it's necessary in this sin-filled world. We can help so many children if we're vigilant and we educate them. Little did I know that keeping secrets would become a way of life for me and my family. My mother remarried to my new stepdad, and he turned out to be our worst nightmare. It started pretty normal. He was heavy-handed, took over the discipline right away, but over the years, it grew into out-of-control abuse. So now we're living in another broken home. The physical abuse, it was criminal, but even worse were the mental games that he would play. We were just being broken down physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I'll give you an example, but I don't want to dwell too much on all the negative stuff. I was about 12 years old, and it was one of my chores to feed the dogs and clean their bowls. One day, my stepdad came home to inspect our chores, as was his custom, and he was convinced that I hadn't cleaned the bowls with hot, soapy water, and so my punishment was to stack 7 cords of firewood by myself. I don't know if you know how much wood that is, but that's a lot of wood. It was a little infraction, big out-of-balance consequence. I got home from school the next day, started stacking the firewood. I got overwhelmed as I looked at this mountain of wood, especially for a young kid that lay before me. So I was sick and tired of this. I decided to run away. And I ran all the way down to my neighbor's house, 2 doors down. Unbeknownst to me, my stepdad came home early to supervise my work. He came looking for me, but as he drove around on his motorcycle, I hid underneath my neighbor's little trailer there, little cargo trailer. And unfortunately, I knew I was getting myself in deeper, and I knew I was in serious trouble now. After my mom got home from work, she finally found me, brought me home. Didn't want to go home, but I had to go home. He went off and proclaimed that I was in big trouble and that he would need to think about my punishment. So for 3 days, he outwardly would go through all the possible consequences, just messing with my head and twisting my emotions. And then he came home early from work, as was his custom before mom got home, and he put me in the car. And he told me, pick a road that led out of town, then pick an orchard, then pick a row, then a tree, and then a branch. Now understand, by this time, I had already been beaten, I had been whipped, I had been tied up, I had been hit so hard in the head that I had a grand mal seizure that same night. So I was terrified, not knowing what was he going to do. I was shaking, I was crying, the fear was overwhelming. I finally figured out that I was just going to choose and cut down the branch that he would whip me with. But as we walked back to the car, he messed with my head. He starts praising me for picking out the perfect one. You see, praise only came in our lives when it was a mockery. We got home, he sat me down on the back porch and had me whittle the switch down with a pocket knife, fashioning it into this little perfect instrument of torture that he would use on me. And then he didn't whip me. For 3 days, he taunted me. He'd pick it up and he'd whip the back of the couch, just sit there, go, whip, whip, whip. And he'd go, no, I just don't think I'm quite ready right now, and set it back in the corner of the room. And he'd say, not a word, go to your room. And I would just put my head in my pillow, and I would be screaming and crying and just punching my bed. I was going a little crazy at times. Finally, on the 3rd day, he came home early, had me take off all my clothing, humiliating me, and had me stand hugging the post of my brother's bunk bed. And he proceeded to whip me and whip me. And I had crisscrossed, raised welts from the top of my neck to my ankles. When he was done, he sent me to my room, and I crawled onto my bed. I was crying. My back was killing me. My whole backside was killing me. I remember I couldn't lay down, and I just was crying out, why? Why is this happening to me? And it never stopped. My mother came home from work. She saw my backside, and she went to him, and she tried to stick up for me, and unfortunately, she wound up having a very bad night too. We were trapped. We were tormented. I went to school the next day, acting like everything was okay. I remember leaning over to get a book out of a case, and my shirt pulled up a little bit. And the teacher's assistant saw my back and said, "What's that?" And I made up a lie right on the spot. "Oh, my brother and I, we were fighting, and we were whipping each other with switches, and well, we got in a lot of trouble." You see, keeping secrets was our way of life. Keeping secrets from our neighbors, from our extended family, even our own mother, was the norm for us. Little infraction, big out of balance consequence. And with each destructive criticism from him, with each demeaning, hateful comment, with each sadistic consequence, my spirit was being broken. And this began to develop a broken picture in my mind of God. Because I had heard things like, if you stole a piece of gum, that you'll burn in hell forever. Little infraction, huge out of balance, eternal consequence. No, I don't need an angry God that sounds just like my stepdad. Of course, this is not the right picture of our loving God, but I didn't know that at the time. I was hardened in my thinking toward God with each and every beating, with each and every consequence. And the abuse continued, and he began to get more and more physical with my mother. And she would have to hide her black and blue bruising that would last for months at a time with her clothing. I don't remember him ever hitting my body, punching my body, but he did love to hit us in the head with his fists or with a metal soup ladle. He would grab us by our hair, and he would just shake us violently like these little Raggedy Ann dolls. If he didn't use his leather belt, he would use this little sadistic instrument he created. It was this solid, very dense, heavy fiberglass board. In fact, he engraved each of our 3 names on it and engraved the title of the Board of Education. It was so sick. And he even took the time to wrap the handle in leather and drilled a bunch of holes at the end of it. So, whenever he would hit our bare skin, it made this perfect little arrangement of raised welts. He thought it was just hysterical. I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of time he put into making it. It reminds me of a scripture I found in the Bible, in Isaiah 1:3. It declares that there are some people that the whole head is sick. I agree. Working at his business in the evenings and on the weekends, it was worse. And we could never tell anyone, especially Mom. If we did, then the next time we were at the shop by ourselves with him, he would teach us a lesson in zipping our lips. It was hopeless. And I saw no way out. It got so bad that one day I begged my brother Aaron to break my arm so I didn't have to go to the shop and be alone with him. So I put my arm between 2 wooden chairs and had him get on top of the table and jump down with one leg to try to break my arm. I remember being mad at him because he couldn't break my arm. Just craziness. My mom, she was scared. She had grown numb, and frankly, she didn't know the depth of all the abuse. It was like I was bleeding to death emotionally, and this led to thoughts of suicide. I don't want to admit that, but I welcomed death, and I wanted death. On top of being free from all the pain and all the suffering, I thought maybe it would wake somebody up to what was going on in our family. But I would think about my mom and how much it would have broken her heart. And I knew it would send her over the edge, so I never did it. I mean, thank God. I wish, though, I would have told somebody. But we just kept it all inside, acting like everything was okay on the outside. And there are far too many people living this way today. We did a good job because nobody knew it. It was hopeless, and it was taking its toll on us. To this day, my brother Aaron, big, strong guy, can barely talk about it. All the hurt, all the negative emotions, all that pain is still just largely bottled up inside. Once Mom remarried and we were living with, what kind of memories do you have of that?
A lot of fear, a lot of being ruled with an iron fist. Always on edge, you know, always had to worry about what was going to happen when you got home from work. What, you know, just every day was a very fearful time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember living through a lot of pain and hurt. I remember our stepdad on a daily basis having a lot of anger towards us and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember the abuse physically and mentally and on a daily basis. That's all I remember. I don't remember any fun times in that part of my life.
We had some, but they're hard to pick out. You know?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I can remember going camping, but I can remember why we were camping. It was turmoil, and there was stuff. You know, I didn't feel comfortable in my childhood. I really didn't. You know what I mean? It was a lot of pain, and that pain filtered over into my adulthood. You know.
Yeah.
I was molded back in that time without even knowing it. A lot of my behaviors and stuff later on in life came from that area of my childhood.
I remember specifically one night when Aaron came in and woke me up, and he goes, "I think he's gonna kill her. I think he's gonna kill her." And I was like, "What?" And all I had was this little souvenir baseball bat thing. It was like that big, and I'm like, "Let's go, man!" And we were going down the hallway. And as we came around the corner from the kitchen into the family room, he had you by your hair. And he was shaking you so violently. And he threw you, and you landed on Grandma and Grandpa's rocking chair. And you broke it.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, I went to Child Protective Services when I was a sophomore. But I didn't talk to him right away about, here's what's happening to me. What if I had a friend, and that friend was going through this? How would it go, and what would happen? Because the last thing I wanted was this thing to go wrong, and then I get in major trouble with this guy. You follow? We were all terrified. And so we came up with this plan. And I sat my mom and my stepdad down, and I said, I've been talking to people at school. And if you touch one more hair on our heads, there will be investigations, there will be jail time, and it's all over. I didn't say it like that, though, you know. I mean, I wasn't like, you understand? I mean, I was just like, my knees smote one to the other, right? Because I'm actually saying this to the man that controlled our lives and every facet of our life. And so my mom gets up. He's like a missile. He gets up. He storms to the back of the house, just ranting and raving, every kind of profanity. And I'm thinking, I did it, you know. She looks at me, and she goes after him. She goes after him. Craziness. What I didn't know was that my mother, shortly thereafter, would go to a class that her work was sponsoring. And one of the questions was, what's important in your life?
Bottom line, the class was, what's important in your life?
Okay.
Number one was your kids
Yeah.
and your safety. And here I am again, and you're not safe.
What's going through your head?
I didn't think I had any way out.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So you've got this man that's abusing all of us.
Right.
And I don't think I'm worthy.
You don't think you're worthy? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Who am I to, be somebody that stands up against him? I couldn't.
Well,
I was too scared.
you were too scared.
I was afraid I was going to die.
It amazes me just how powerful fear is. It held us in that house for 9 years of misery. Sometimes victims cannot actually see a way out. They become so trapped, so helpless in their minds and by the real threats that they get stuck. So outside help is needed. If you suspect that someone is abusing or being abused, it is better to intervene and be wrong than to do nothing and find out later you were right. Don't be like most people and do nothing. I just don't want to get involved. That's a coward's response. Doing something is always the right choice. John 16:33 says, "In the world you shall have tribulation." Well, we understood tribulation. We understood fear and hopelessness. And we were just looking for someone to love us, to protect us, and to teach us how to be men. But the character that was being modeled to us by our stepdad was that you beat or manipulate people into submission to get what you want. And this is what we 3 boys did to each other. It was about self-preservation, looking out for number one. We were violent with each other. I was terrible to my brothers. Since I was the oldest and I should know better, I took a lot of the abuse. But to save our own skins, and especially me, Aaron and I would try to convince our youngest brother, since you're the youngest, you won't have such a bad consequence. We would convince him to take the fall for something that we did. We weren't close to each other as children. We weren't protecting each other or encouraging each other. I was not being a protective big brother. And on the other side, another character that was being modeled to us by our biological dad was that you run away from life's responsibilities, turning your back on your family, drink all your problems away, or take drugs to numb the pain. We were never given, on both sides, a healthy picture of what a real man should be. And I thought this would never end. But one morning, a morning I will never forget, we were getting ready for school, and my mother confided in me that we were leaving. She had put a secret plan together, and we were going to escape. She had talked to an attorney, and she had made a plan with the local authorities and with the police there at the house. We escaped. I remember you saying to me, "I'm leaving your stepdad." And I went, "What?" We're leaving. We're getting out of here this weekend.
You can't say anything.
And you can't say anything. That's what you said. You can't say anything. And I was like, "We're leaving?" It was such a relief.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It was.
You're going to be free. I never saw it coming. I was going to kill myself or run away.
No. We took all the guns and we hid the ammunition under the bed that you had been sleeping in. And, so there was no guns.
There was no loaded guns that could be something catastrophic happening.
No.
Because the guy had flipped a switch. He was gone.
Right. That's why I had the police stand by.
Yeah. So we left.
We did. Yeah.
Good decision.
Yeah.
We're leaving. What emotions are you going through?
Relief. Because that scary, scary person that we came home to every day was not going to be there.
No. What was it like for you when you found out we were leaving? Mom was divorcing him.
I was terrified.
You were terrified?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, sure. I mean, he always said if she left him that he would kill us.
Yeah.
So that's what terrified me.
Yeah.
On one side. On the other side, I was elated that we're finally going to get out of the situation and things are going to get better.
When you think back, why do you think it took so long?
Because he was so controlling.
Yeah, he
and
had you.
me.
He had your mind.
He had me. He had my mind. And if I hadn't taken that class at the bank, I'm not sure I would have gotten out as soon, or we would have gotten out as soon as we did. But it just opened my eyes to go, come on, you're doing this again.
Yeah.
And it's not at all what I wanted.
Good choice. We were free. So we moved 30 miles from Manteca up to Lodi.
And I was ready to embrace a new life. I was ready to just leave it all behind. In fact, I didn't even tell anybody about my childhood. All they knew was that my mom got a divorce and we left. And so I had an opportunity to reinvent myself, basically. And we had lived a facade my whole life anyway. I used to tell lies about my biological father, that he was some rich multimillionaire and he was off doing all this amazing stuff because I didn't want to tell people I have a loser dad that's an alcoholic and a druggie. And I would lie about how my life was fine. When I look back at the different photos of my childhood and we're smiling there, I'm thinking, what a charade, what a lie. But you see, on the outside, we had to act like everything was all right. When on the inside, it's an absolute travesty. It's a horrible existence. And finally, my mom comes to me and says, we're leaving. Friends, when you've been so pushed down, when you've been so manipulated and taught that you're nothing. One of my names from this man was a curse word. My brothers had different ones. And when you're that oppressed and all of a sudden you're free, you don't even know how good freedom is until you are set free. The problem comes in when you don't know what to do with the freedom. When you're so beaten down emotionally, physically, mentally, and your life, your time, and your thinking is so controlled, it's actually weird to be free. It's not our normal. Victims can actually get so used to the abuse and control that they become more comfortable in it rather than seeking out a healthy alternative. Many times they will seek out other controlling people. They'll get involved in unhealthy, even dangerous relationships because that's what's familiar. This is why taking personal inventory is absolutely vital. We must take a long and usually hard look at ourselves and ask the question, am I making choices today that are driven by the unhealthy programming of my childhood? Or am I making decisions based on my fear of the unknown? If you're in trouble, you can do this. You can get out. You must and you can make a decision to save yourself and your children. The time to take action is now. We had developed different ways to deal with the pain of the past. We would escape, as many do, through TV, movies, video games, music, sports, and so on. The problem was that the relief was only temporary. When the distraction was over, we were right back where we had left off in our wrong thinking and actions. Nothing ever got fixed. We were just coping, and frankly, not even that well. However, I got to my new high school, and in the spirit of totally reinventing myself, I began looking for a new outlet. I dropped sports, and I decided on theater. The class was full, so I had to go ask the theater arts teacher if he'd let me into the class. And so we talked for a little bit, and he said, I like you, Chris, because I used to go by Chris. I wasn't real excited about my full name, Christian. He says, I'll let you in my class on one condition. You must audition for my upcoming musical. Okay, right then, I made a decision that would healthfully impact my life. Inside, though, I was hearing, yeah, right, you're a loser. You can't be in a show. Nobody wants to see you or hear you. Yet I put my hand out and I said, deal. And then he says, by the way, auditions start today. And he had a little smile on his face. I said, okay. So I go to the auditions and I'm standing up there on stage and I'm ready to sing a song that I had never heard before. And it didn't go very well. I'm standing up there and it's my turn to start singing. And I start to sing and they're like, that's not right. So the choir director, she starts, okay, Cassie, please sing with Christian. And so she's like, la, 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 la. And I'm like, la, 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 la. Like, no, in your own voice, son. I don't know. I just copy what I hear. What do you mean, my own voice? And then, okay, Mr. Tevis, the band director, get up there and you sing. And I'm like, he's like, no, in your own voice, son. And I'm like, I don't know what my own voice is. And Then I did my little reading for my audition, and they cast me in one of the lead roles in a musical. They said, well, if he can sing soprano and bass with him, we're probably okay. And so I wind up finding some escape. Man, I've been so beaten down, so downtrodden, that I actually found a new way to escape the broken record that was going through my brain. And I started escaping in different characters. The problem was it never fixed anything, because when you're not that character, you're back to your own program, right? So it was like, we interrupt this program for just a little bit of time while I was being those characters. And I dove deep into a friendship with this new theater arts teacher. In fact, he didn't know it, neither did I, but he would basically start to become like a surrogate father for me. He was the first man in my life that actually did me no harm, but he took an interest in me, and he challenged me.
I don't know, there was an electricity about you that kind of permeated the entire group. And there were kids, I think, that were a bit intimidated by you. And it wasn't because you were intimidating, it was because you were talented.
Interesting.
And that was obvious.
You became a surrogate father to me. You became a very special person in my life. And eventually I even started calling you Dad.
You did.
And you eventually started calling me son when you knew it wasn't just this little kitschy phrase.
The dad thing was a wonderful term of endearment. And of course, having no children of my own, it was great. And who could ask for a better son?
Oh, thanks.
But I did call you son. It was my reaching back, Christian.
Yes.
And I loved your mom. You know, I think there was a simpatico kind of thing that was happening between us. And you were so hungry for knowledge that it was a pleasure. You know, we didn't always talk about theater, I know that, but we didn't talk about politics either. I know that either. You know, I do know we talked a lot about accomplishments. I know we talked about how well you're doing in your classes. Are you keeping up your grades? And then as you started to succeed and made your mom proud, that's when the dad and son thing started.
I was in Australia last year, and I had a 4-city tour that we were doing. And I was speaking and singing and doing some lecturing. Not on the itinerary was this impromptu, after I went to this one church, they said, oh, could you speak tomorrow morning at our morning manna that we have? And I said, sure, no problem. And as I sat there and I realized, I started talking to these people, and a lot of them were educators. And so I was giving them my testimony. And as I was giving them my testimony, I realized that it was an educator that really took me under his wing, that took special interest in me. And I can tell you that it changed my life.
It is profoundly important, especially for young people, to have someone in their lives that they can trust and look up to. Even more so for those who have been victimized. By this time in my story, I had made a concrete decision to move forward with my life. Of course, I hadn't figured everything out, but in doing this, something very powerful happened. It opened my eyes to new possibilities. Of course, it was scary, but I wanted it. I didn't want my past to equal or mess up my future. You know, it breaks my heart when adults come up to me and say, what happened in my childhood has changed me forever. In other words, the past has made me the failure I am today. That's why I'll never succeed. Or the past has made me the angry person I am today, and you can't blame me for my bad behavior. Or I'll never have a close relationship because I can't trust anybody. No, only if we let it. It is very important, friends, that you hear what I'm about to say. It can actually change your life. We are not a composite or a product of all the experiences that we've had. Rather, we are a composite of what we make of and do with those experiences. That's quite profound. For example, some people say after being abused by a parent, I'll never abuse my child. I will be an amazing spouse. I will protect my family. This is a healthy victor's response, a new outlook, a new future. It's not what happened, but how we respond to it. Sadly, some people will continue to be victimized today by the abuse in the past. They'll deny themselves the joys of marriage or even having children. This is an unhealthy victim's response and a future of loneliness. So, what really happens here is that we continue to keep the past alive and ruin our present lives and future life by our poor choice to remain a victim. Now, this might be hard for you to hear, but I say this to you in all love for you. Continuing to be a victim is voluntary. I can't overcome this. Wait, be careful. God's word says something else. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. While we can't change what happened to us, we can change how we react to it. That's the truth, and that's good news to me. You see, God will give us power to become more than conquerors. John 10:10 promises, "The thief cometh not, but to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and they might have it more abundantly." I'm learning how to start to carry a tune. I'm there with the dance teachers, and they're teaching me how to dance. And eventually I decided, man, I'm going to take different dance classes. So I started studying jazz, tap, and ballet. And I was just enjoying it. My creativity was just bubbling out of me. I was a natural as an actor. You know why? I had been an actor my whole life. Don't miss that point. In fact, a lot of the best actors on this planet, whether on film or in theater, have some pretty tragic backgrounds. We have a lot of emotional content we can pull on. People started doing this. They started patting me on the back. We started getting standing ovations. We started getting written up in the newspapers, my picture taken on the news. I would go into civic theater and on into professional theater, and everything was going great, but the problem was that was feeding my ego in a way that wasn't healthy. And it didn't solve anything. So I swung from having really zero self-image, if you will, to having one that's not equally healthy either, to where my ego arrived in this room far before I did. Hello, you are so privileged that I am here. I was good at what I was doing, and I was going to let everybody know it. Maybe not with my words, but by my presence and my actions. That's not healthy. That didn't fix anything. It just pushed the pause button on this broken, emotionally bound up guy. My mother was working on letting the past go too. She met a new man. Obviously, I was concerned. She hadn't chosen wisely twice before, but he was different. He was actually the junior racquetball coach for my two brothers, and my mom became the team mom. They eventually became an item. They had no idea of the problems that they would face together as a couple. My brothers were broken. They chose to follow in our father's footsteps. They didn't know what to do after we escaped. They didn't know what to do with their freedom.
It's just a whole new experience for us. Went from the iron fist to all the freedom in the world.
Yeah.
And I had mom working until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, trying to pay all the bills and do her part. And here I'm at home alone. I go to a campus where I can just walk away. I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to be there. And from there, I got mixed up with the wrong group of guys, a group of friends that introduced me to drugs.
And at what age is this now?
14.
14 years old. And how did it start, and where did it go?
Well, it started just casually doing some cocaine on the weekends with these guys partying. They were older than I was. They were juniors and seniors. I was a freshman. It took me from casually doing it on the weekends, like I said, to doing it a couple times a week during the week. I was skipping school. I from my freshman year to my sophomore year, I went to class probably half of the time.
Serious.
Yeah.
I knew you were cutting class. I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And from there, I got introduced to methamphetamines.
And you started the meth at what point?
When I was 16.
So you would have been sophomore, junior?
Well, supposed to be a junior, but I wasn't going to school at all at that time.
Okay.
At all. I pretty much went through the motions, leaving the house like I was going to school, but actually all I do was meet up at school with a couple of the friends, and we'd go off and party at one of the people's houses. Their parents were at work. And that's what it was every day, day in and day out.
What are you thinking? Are you not? Why are you doing drugs? What's going on?
I never asked myself that, because when I was doing them, I ignored anything and everything that meant something to me. And
why was that? What do you think?
I don't know. Today I know it's because I think dope is one of the devil's tools.
You think dope is one of the devil's tools? Yeah, I would definitely agree.
Yeah, but at the time, it put me in a place where I would ignore and forget anything that has happened in my past, and make me not care. I didn't care at all when I was on it.
I smoked my first joint in my 6th grade year.
Serious?
Yes.
So you would have been how old?
12.
12?
And even at that time in my life, I started getting in trouble in school and stuff like that. I had difficulty with authority, you know.
Well, we all did.
Right.
Yeah, because
you know?
that's all we had was authority
Right.
over us. And yeah.
Right. And I can remember from my 6th grade on, nobody was going to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
In my 7th grade year, I was smoking pot on a regular basis. When I became a freshman, that's when I started hanging out with juniors and seniors. I would take off with them and not go to school. And started snorting coke. All the ladies in the truancy office knew me by my first name, you know, and everybody knew who I was because they were always looking for me, you know. And so I got kicked out of Tokay and I got sent to Liberty High School. So instead of going to school for 7 or 8 hours a day, I was going to Liberty, starting school at 10:30 in the afternoon and getting out at 2:30, you know. So I was only in school for a couple hours.
You had a lot of free time.
And Liberty High School is a continuation school. It's where all the kids that
are having issues.
Correct. You know, it's a mishmash of problems. You know, it's a melting pot. You know, and that's where I started doing meth when I was in Liberty High School.
Things didn't go as beaver cleaver as we had hoped after you got married.
Well, you know, it's kind of unusual when, you know, you're dating a woman, and one of the outings that you go to is to see the youngest in juvenile hall.
Yeah.
And because that's where Brandon was, and I couldn't go in and see him, even though I think he wanted me to, because I wasn't in any, you know, relationship. It was just a boyfriend.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, it wasn't. There was already some, you know, signs ahead of time.
Yeah.
My mother remarries. And indeed, she finds a good man. Praise God. We say the third time was a charm. He is a good man, raised in a Christian home, a Christian young man. He was 32 years old, I think, when my mother married him. He became an instant father of 3 teenage boys. That is quite a man. I was sure he was crazy, but he fell in love with my mother. Little did he know that my two brothers would test them and their marriage to depths that they had never anticipated.
We saw it with Brandon early on.
We did.
Because not too long after we got married, I had to put Brandon in rehab. So a different cycle started.
And
I was safe. They could have been safe. They didn't choose to be.
Yeah, no, they didn't have the tools. None of us
No.
did. All of us are
No.
trying to figure out life now because
Yeah.
life was
And I'm
so
going,
different.
what? What do you mean? Why,
Yeah.
why are you doing this?
Yeah.
We have a home. We're safe. We have a good man that's taken us under his wing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a good job. He has a good job. You can have pretty much what you want and a roof over your head and food on the table.
But the demons of the past were screaming in their heads, in mine as well.
So it went from high school, doing drugs and stealing a little bit here and there, you know, breaking into places or whatever to get something that I could either sell or trade for drugs.
Yeah.
And then into my adult life, it went into robbing people, which means someone says this person owes me money for drugs, so we'd kick in their door, someone would hold them at gunpoint, we'd ransack their house, take their stuff. And totally high on drugs the whole time, methamphetamine.
Yeah, well, you don't do that in the right mind.
Right.
I mean, come on, that's craziness.
The drugs had a hold of me. I got to the point to where...
You're how old now at this point?
19, 20?
Oh,
As a mother, you want the best for your kids. You know, as a father coming or a stepdad coming in, you have to have compassion. And you married and saw something in that woman, and you got to look at that person, and their kids are an extension of them. You know, you may not like what they do what they do in their lives, but they're an extension of the person that you love. And in time, that person in them will come around that you saw in the one you love.
why do you have tears in your eyes?
I've never heard him say that before.
You know,
I love you.
I love you. Because, you know, all three of the boys are part of you. And I can't love you without loving them.
It's awesome.
So my brothers were running from their emotions and from all their pain in an unhealthy way. By this time in their life, I'm already in junior college and I'm studying communications. In fact, I got interested in TV video production and I started working for a cable company and I wanted to learn how to make TV. And so I got involved. I started as a tape operator and worked my way up. I became a cameraman and then I became a director. And I started to grow into what I thought I would do for the rest of my life, and that would be in media production. Little did I know God would start a ministry for me years later in media production. Praise the Lord.